Hello, this is Mark with American Rescue Concepts. I'm going to talk a little bit about the BW Gas Alert QUATTRO 4-sensor gas detector. This particular model is a diffusion type or passive gas detector. This model also is runs with batteries, three AA batteries. Those batteries are kept in the back here. This is the battery pack. It requires a special tool. I don't know if you can see that tool. A little Allen wrench to get that started to remove the pack. So you take their tool, remove the screw, push the black tab up to release the battery pack. The battery pack comes out. You can see the 3 batteries in it right there. Also, this tab is attached to a wire that helps you, see that wire there? That wire there that helps you remove the batteries. So I slide that over to one side or the other, and I lift up and it pulls the batteries out. When I want to install new batteries, I have to seat that little wire back in, and I keep that tab folded to the outside. My batteries go in positive, all lined up towards the front of the housing. 1, positive forward, 2, and positive forward for number 3. Once I have my batteries installed, I fold my little tab back in so it makes it clean to install back into the unit. I take my, oh, by the way, you can see, if I hold this up just right, you can see inside here the sensors. It's a different type of sensor in the QUATTRO versus the Max XT2. But there are 4 sensors in there, and those 4 sensors measure oxygen, LEL, H2S, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon monoxide. So I'm going to put that screw back in there to hold it. You saw that tab came down and locked that battery compartment in. So I take my tool and I put my screw back in. Try not to lose those screws, please. So this is a diffusion type meter. So it only senses the gas that passes over these 4 sensors on the front, on the face of the meter. You can use this meter to detect gas remotely, but you have to lower the meter itself into the space and see what it gives you. And you use the peak function on this for that process. This is a single button operation meter. So you have this gray button. Use that button to turn it on, turn it off, check peaks, and put it into the calibration mode. We're going to do all of that here. When we calibrate this, because it is a diffusion type meter, we have to change regulators. The demand regulator will not work. You have to use an on-off regulator. And it has a different calibration cap that you have to use with it. So we'll go through that process here in just a second. First off, I'm going to turn it on and we'll watch the startup phase as it checks the sensors and does a little fresh air setup and tells you what, if anything, is wrong with your meter. So here we go. Push and hold. On she goes. And it is a QUATTRO, and it gives you the version. TWA alarms for your toxins, low alarms for the meter, high alarms for the meter, and basically just follow whatever it says on the screen. So now it's going into its auto zero. So it's zeroing to the atmosphere that it's in. Make sure you're in a clean atmosphere when you do this, when you start this thing up. Not by exhausts, not anywhere where you're in contaminated, potentially contaminated atmosphere. So on the front of it, you'll see that the battery indicator is on there. Typically, a full battery is going to last you anywhere from 6 to 8 hours with this thing, is what we're finding. It's really convenient that you can change out those batteries in the field, and you'll find those in the case with all the meters and radios and harnesses. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this meter. I'm going to Remember, we're going to bump it every time before we use it to make sure that it's operating correctly and that the sensors are actually doing what they're supposed to do properly. So I've got my gas attached, or my calibration cap attached. We're going to look at the volume. We've done this before, but the volume is 100 parts per million carbon monoxide, 25 parts per million hydrogen sulfide, 50% LEL, and the volume on O2 is 18%. That will fluctuate when we do the bumping or the calibrating, and that's fine. We're looking for the toxins and the LEL to be dead nuts, however. So I'm going to turn my gas on, and it should start reading that shortly. So again, we're waiting for those sensors to read the appropriate values that are in that cylinder. This typically takes, I don't know, I would say no longer than a minute. If it takes longer than a minute, I usually disconnect, turn my gas off. There we go, turning my gas off. If it takes longer than a minute, I usually take my gas off, set it to the side, get the next meter, and I'll come back to this later. It seems that when these sensors kind of wake up once you show them some gas. So we're going back to zeros. It will alarm like that until you get back into the acceptable entry conditions that are used for these sensors. So since we've done that, let's go to the peak mode. I know that this thing now, since I showed it gas, it should give me a reading on the peaks. So to get to my peaks, I push twice that button, and it's rapidly, once, twice, and there we go. We're back into the peak mode. So it's telling us that we got a hit on H2S for the Stells. There's the peak readings that it saw. To clear that, I have to wait for my next screen and do what it says. I push and hold, and I watch as the countdown goes through. Boom, I am cleared. My peaks have been reset. So now we're ready to go. So to put this meter in calibration mode, we use that same single button, and I'm going to push and hold. And even though it goes through off, I'm going to keep holding. I never let go. And boom, it goes into calibration mode. I would, to go to calibration, I apply my gas. I wait to see what it says. I apply my gas, right? I got to get that darn screw lined up. That's the trickiest part of it all. There it is. Hey, when you're doing this, don't over tighten this little plastic thing. You can pull the nut through, or you pull the little screw through the calibration cap. So I'm going to apply my gas. It gives me a little countdown. If you miss that countdown, you have to start the calibration process over. You see each of the sensors will darken as the meter picks it up. Yep. See, we missed it. It did not give us H2S, and it did not give us O2. So we're gonna cancel that. I'm gonna turn my gas off. Remove the calibration cap. This is problematic stuff that you're gonna run into, fellas. So I am glad that we picked it up here on this little demo, because you guys that'll happen in the field, and you're gonna have to deal with it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and go into the calibration mode. We let it zero out, right? So now we're going to go into the calibration mode. We push and hold. This time I'll stop jacking my jaw and get the cap on. Good, here we go. Calibration cap is on. Apply gas now. As again, the sensors will darken as the meter picks them up. And then we know we're getting into a calibration mode. That's more like it. So this typically takes about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to go through this process. It seems that the Quattros get through the calibration process a little quicker than the Max XT2s, right? We can use the same gas for both meters. They require the same calibration gas. So That's awesome. Now you'll notice on the bottom of the screen there a little black bar. As this unit is calibrating, as this machine calibrates, the bar will move and tell you you're getting closer and closer to a calibration being complete. If you're in the calibration phase and you cannot reach the values for each, and you'll see it says it wants 25, it wants 100, LEL is 50, and O2 is 18. The 18%, we're at 17.6, but that's okay. It's telling me that I know that I'm getting a reading on O2, so I'm comfortable with that. I was once posed a question, if you could, when you're calibrating these units, what happens if that oxygen concentration is low? It's still going to perform when you get it out in the field. If that O2 sensor is bad, it will give you a bad sensor indication, and there's not a thing you can do about that. You're just going to have to change that sensor out or have it changed out, send it in, have a qualified technician change it out. So we're getting close. Remember, once we get there, we're going to turn that gas off like it says. That gas is quite expensive, so turn it off first. Remove your calibration cap, and it's going to continue going through its calibration phase. Once we calibrate these units, we put a calibration label on it to indicate when it's required, when this next calibration is required. Bam, calibration complete. It says 180 days before next calibration is due. That's per BW. We calibrate every 30 days or even sooner when required. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please come see me. Thanks. Bye.